Meanwhile, the Obama administration is trying to make changes at the agency that regulates deepwater drilling, the Minerals Management Service. Clean Sky's Dan Goldstein takes a look at reform efforts at MMS and how some say the proposed fixes may not be enough.
A surprising admission from Interior Secretary Ken Salazar.
Did the country as a whole, the United States Congress, the Department of Interior, the oil and gas industry, and everybody else who's affected by this decision become lax? I would say yes. The answer is yes.
A sharp contrast to what Salazar and President Obama said in March when they introduced the administration's drilling proposal just 3 weeks before the Gulf disaster. On the cover of their plan, Salazar said, quote, "The Gulf of Mexico oil and gas activities provide an important spur to technological innovation, and the industry has proven that it can conduct its activities safely." At the heart of Salazar's turnaround, failures at the Minerals Management Service, the agency that was supposed to regulate deepwater drilling. Bill Snape of the Center for Biological Diversity says MMS was too deep in Big Oil's pocket.
The industry does control this agency. I think the agency, Interior and MMS, do not have adequate mechanisms to make sure that industry complies with safety and environmental rules.
The government's own language defers to the industry, from rules governing how long cement should be cured to planning spill response. Deputy Director Chris Oinez, seen here presenting Deepwater Horizon operator Transocean a safety award in 2008, last week resigned. President Obama, who committed to expanding offshore drilling, now questions the agency.
For a decade or more, there's been a cozy relationship between the oil companies and the federal agency that permits them to drill.
But the problems at MMS may run deeper. Robin West is a former Reagan administration official who helped form MMS, now CEO of PFC Energy. He says the agency is just overwhelmed by an industry that's advanced faster than the government could keep up.
Drilling and producing under an environment which is so complex, it requires really state-of-the-art technology. It's like going to the moon. I do think you had a small agency that the industry changed, and it really didn't change with it.
As far as government agencies goes, the Minerals Management Service hasn't been around very long. It was formed about 30 years ago under President Reagan's first Interior Secretary, James Watt. Now Interior Secretary Ken Salazar says it's time for it to go away.
I signed a secretarial order that will lead to the fundamental restructuring of the Minerals Management Service. It will restructure the divisions and the three conflicting missions of the agency into three separate entities.
Already some critics say splitting the agency doesn't get to the heart of the problem.
And I think these abbreviated regulatory mechanisms that MMS and the Department of Interior and Ken Salazar have instituted is a big part of the problem.
It's very much a domestic agency, and they really didn't know what was going on in terms of sort of state-of-the-art elsewhere in the world. And there have been other big disasters in Brazil, in the UK, in Australia, in Norway, and they didn't really look outside. They didn't try and learn from that.
And some experts are concerned over the changes proposed in the aftermath of the disaster. Salazar halted permits on deepwater drilling, but the order also stops work on new wells in shallow water. That could lead to thousands of layoffs for deckhands within weeks.
It shouldn't be a ready, fire, aim approach.
Mike Olson, a former Department of Interior lawyer, now with Bracewell Giuliani, says Congress's efforts to raise liability caps for offshore drilling could make it more difficult for smaller firms to get insurance.
As Congress is considering changes, as the administration is considering changes and potential new rules, regulations, there needs to be a very well thought out plan so that there aren't unintended consequences.
With images of the spill and endangered beaches dominating the headlines, BP's ability to finally plug its ocean gusher may be the best chance to limit some of those new rules. Dan Goldstein, Clean Skies News.